Welcome to another week of Living a Rich Life. I am your host, Rich James. Thanks for joining us as we continue celebrating and recognizing amazing women during Women's Month. Here on Living a Rich Life talk show, we inform, inspire, and encourage each other to live the principles of Living a Rich Life Network. Those principles are good health, strong relationships, financial freedom, goals and achievement, extraordinary experiences, and philanthropy. Today's guests are prime examples of individuals that will do just that and keep you focused on living a rich life. So with that being said, let's talk about it. Today's first guest has worked with companies such as Fox Broadcasting Company, NBC Universal, Def Jam Records, CBS Television, and PS Media Talent. She has wrangled talent for red carpet events such as the NAACP Image Awards, the BET Hip Hop Awards, and so much more. Known for garnering the visibility of brands, businesses, and personalities, co-founder of PR agency Intel Media Group, please welcome an elite force in business and life, Ms. Reagan Farley. Welcome.
Hey, Rich, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for that amazing introduction.
Well, you're very welcome. First and foremost, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I cannot complain at all. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, these times have been challenging, but at the same time, you know, I've been blessed to continue to move forward with things. So you look amazing since the last time I saw you as well. You looked amazing then, but I think we saw each other at the Sagamore Rye event.
We did. And it was good to meet you, and I'm excited for us to talk today.
Oh, well, good. So let's get right into it. My team put together some questions, and we want to get to know you. We want to share with our audience on some of the things that motivate you and inspire you. So thanks for joining and sharing.
Yes.
So right off the bat, tell us, what does public relations mean to you for those novices?
We getting started with the heated questions already, right?
Yeah, we get right into it.
So public relations, because I feel that PR is a luxury service that so many people think that they need and they aren't sure why, right? Like, I get inquiries from artists, I get inquiries from entertainers, business owners. But when we talk about PR at its core, it's communications. It's the way that you communicate to the general public for what we call earned media visibility. So when I'm saying earned media visibility to a potential client or anything of that nature, I'm saying the press that we get you, because I'll say we, my team, Intel Media Group, the press that we get you from an earned media perspective. So meaning what we pitch, how we sell your story. So no, that doesn't quote unquote mean, hey, I'm paying money for your story. I am more so getting press for you from what is considered pitching. So helping you craft a story enough so that way a journalist like yourself, Rich, is interested in covering the client, interviewing them outright, but not paying to be interviewed, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that makes sense. And I think that's a good definition for those novices out there.
Yeah.
And then some. So that explains, because sometimes, again, when it comes to communication,
people get so confused. Yeah. And marketing is saying, try this product. PR is saying this is why the story is important. So I am helping you craft your why.
Gotcha. So would you say that's a little different than advertising as well?
Very different, because so let's say if it was for the Living a Rich Life show, your advertising dollars, that spend is always going to be guaranteed. PR is not necessarily guaranteed. So just even if I'm pitching you as an expert, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get coverage on that Black enterprise. But what that does mean, if our story is solid enough, you'll get that earned media visibility. And then from there, earned media visibility increases third-party media validation. So very different than advertising, because advertising can be a bit more guaranteed. PR isn't as tangible. So that's not saying don't spend your money there, but what that is saying is spend your money strategically there.
Okay, so you talked about there's a few things that stand out to me, right? So marketing, advertisement, those terms.
Yeah.
What's a really good publicity campaign you've seen recently?
So what's funny, right? Remember when Will and Jada and August Alsina did that whole entanglement scenario?
Yes.
So I said this in this post. It didn't go viral, but it did fairly well on my page. It was good PR, bad PR. Let's not get the two entangled, right? And because so many people, right, like so many people get them confused. So I'll say why that wasn't even a campaign outright, right? But I think from a shock value purpose, what happened to that family, or what happened between Will, Jada, and August, it made you guys listen to what was going on. And even if you have not picked up an August Alsina CD in a minute, it at least made you want to pick it up. He didn't utilize that for like another song. I think he had a song called Entangled. But the problem when it comes to shock value and doing things is you can't control that, right? So like, although he may have tried to take that entire campaign and run, because he couldn't control it, we don't know where that media spin went, right? Like it was a good idea. I think it might have been a failed attempt.
Oh,
still a good idea.
Yeah, that's an excellent one. I guess that's why you're the PR person, right?
That's exactly why they pay the big bucks.
Right. So tell me, what's something that you think in terms of companies they fail to understand when it comes to social media, and I say social media marketing, right? Because I would assume social media is probably one of the tools as a publicist that you would recommend or use.
Yeah, you know what I think companies fail to understand is finding their authentic voice, because authenticity is truly, truly, truly important. You see brands such as like a Wendy's. I don't know if you ever follow. I'm like a geek when it comes to stuff like that. So like I follow Wendy's and I actually see what they tweet, because how they're tweeting with the human element. So like they're tweeting slang sometimes. They're talking to a certain audience. Like it's so good. And even Whataburger, I think I'm pronouncing it right. You familiar with Whataburger?
No.
Okay, so Whataburger, I guess it's like this burger place maybe in Texas or somewhere. When Drake and Meek Mill got into like their whole beef a few years ago, Drake has a line, I forgot what song, but he has a line in a song and he goes like, beef turns into like Twitter fingers. So Whataburger got in on the entire conversation and they kept calling Meek Mill chicken fingers. Like, but they sell chicken fingers at Whataburger. So like every single part in that beef, they were in on it. And then Drake took those tweets and he had performed, he did like a tour. He took all of the tweets where Whataburger kept like bashing Meek and being in on their beef and put them up on his screen during his concert. So I think the more that brands can figure out ways to connect and figure out ways to connect with pop culture, they'll understand what it means to resonate, what it means to get buy-in. I'm sure Whataburger, the social media people, never thought that they'd be at a Drake concert and they would be actually using their tweets to perform, and literally every single tweet. So I think if you can get the human element of things, and if you know how to connect that to pop culture and things that are relevant, that's when you're successful on social media. Now, back to my explanation though, social media is a communications tactic. It's not necessarily PR. You should be social on social media, but it's a way in which we communicate. So still a different function, still a different strategy, but all with the same common goal. Okay.
So you mentioned tweet or tweeting, right? Yeah. I don't even have a tweet account, right? So someone that has a PR agency, and again, Intel Media Group, how would you handle a PR crisis such as a controversial tweet from another PR agency?
Yeah, I think it's about really figuring out what they're talking about, right? Like, it's so interesting when you see what the landscape of social media looks like. But I would really want to figure out, like, let's take the Jussie Smollett situation that happened a few years ago too. Because that went viral on social media and that was a nightmare. But I think what happened for him taking so long to respond is that now you give people a chance to make up their own assumptions. So you never want folks talking about you and then it's that wrong way in which they're talking about you. So sometimes it is that level of let me get in front of this, let me speak, let me say something. But then also it's how can we be strategic? So how I would respond to like, I guess, backlash or something as a PR person is I would really want to see, you know, where whatever this person is saying is coming from, approach it with strategy, and figure out the different channels that I should be talking to said agency on.
Oh, interesting. You know, I'm processing all this information.
And I'm giving a lot, so my bad. Like, let me know if I need to.
No. This is what it's about. This is what it's about. I mean, so we're talking about your. So again, let's tell folks how they can get a hold of you, just from a social media. What are some of your social media contact information, since we mentioned that?
Yeah, so I'm Rate a Publicist on all social media platforms. So that's Clubhouse, that's Twitter, that's Facebook, and Instagram. So RaeThePublicist. And then Intel Media Group is the same across all platforms. We actually are not on Clubhouse as an agency yet, but we need to be. So yeah.
So what are some of your favorite social media platforms?
You know, since I like to talk, like since I am a publicist, that's what I do by nature. I'm going to say I am actually willing away from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm present on there, of course, but like I think the landscape of social media is changing too, right? Like we see stuff such as Clubhouse. Twitter is about to roll out a platform called Twitter Spaces. I think April 1, everyone will have access to it. But Spaces is auto communication. So even when it comes to things such as Clubhouse, there's a vanity metric that's removed from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where people aren't necessarily following you from what you post. They're following you based on what you say. And if you can captivate someone in those quick minutes from saying something, I think you've already won the battle there.
So you said you like PR.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you love PR?
I love PR. I love what I do.
Tell us, those that's watching and listening now, tell us, why do you love PR?
So one, right now, I think that my agency, we are at the cusp of one, sharing conversations that relate to a millennial and Generation Z demographic, right? But then also what I get to wake up and do every day that I love is tell Black stories. I'm not saying that I don't tell stories of other cultures, but what moves the needle for me is that I'm telling a story of Harris Hawkins real estate company, which is two black women. They have a Black-owned real estate brokerage here in Baltimore. I'm telling the story of House of Bombshell, which is a Black hair salon here in Baltimore. But then also we're telling stories across the country, from Atlanta to LA, working with organizations such as United Negro College Fund, and me being an HBCU graduate and helping them tell their story for the Mayor's Mass Ball. So those are the reasons why I love what I do, because I'm telling stories that I can relate to. So yeah.
Absolutely. Can you give us an example of a successful promotional event that you run in the past?
Yeah, so I wish the world was open, right? Like, because if the world was open, we'd be doing way more. But one of the events that we love before the pandemic, the panorama, whatever y'all want to call it, happened. So we, back to United Negro College Fund, we were working with them on their Mayor's Mass Ball, which it doesn't happen here, but it happens in DC. We had did the LA event, and they were honoring Anthony Anderson. We only got a chance to do their initial event because the Mass Ball had gotten canceled, but we were featured on platforms such as Revolt. I think we had even got a LA Sentinel feature, just a lot of different features. And I think what felt good about that to me is I went to Lincoln in Pennsylvania. I graduated in 2012. So to see what that looked like from I guess from a brand standpoint, and to remember sitting in those seats and help tell that story, that was amazing to me.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
So for those that's just tuning in, watching and listening, we are speaking with Reagan Farley. She is the co-founder of PR agency Intel Media Group.
Yep.
And we're talking Publicist stuff. So we're going to keep this conversation going. We want to get into a little more personal, right? So what personal characteristics are most important to be successful in public relations?
Rich, I'm gonna have to say resilience, because number one, just because I pitch a story, again, back to PR not being guaranteed, that doesn't necessarily mean that every single story that I pitch for clients will get picked up. So that's number one. There's a level of resilience that I have to have. There's a level of resourcefulness that I have to have too, right? Like finding contacts that I might not necessarily know and reaching out to them, but then also utilizing non-traditional platforms such as Clubhouse or even Twitter Spaces now, since that is the new thing, and kind of getting my clients' message across. So I think I keep saying Clubhouse, but I didn't mention exactly what it is, right? Clubhouse is a new voice activated, I guess, tool, if you will, social media platform where you can have conversations in real time, similar to a podcast. So like if you and I were on Clubhouse, if we took this conversation there, folks can join in real time. They can raise their hand, they can ask us questions, and kind of like go from there. And Twitter Spaces will kind of be something similar. But why I feel like my agency was on the cusp of like integrating that into our wheelhouse or into our strategy is because we saw the success and what that would look like. So one, we have to be innovative. So I'll say resourcefulness, resilience, and innovation are the tools that you have to have in order to be successful in PR.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned the fact, so you mentioned Clubhouse a few times. Mm-hmm. So I'm not on Clubhouse. Actually, I understand you have to get invited to that. I did get an invitation. I haven't really explored that just yet.
Get on. I say that because it's right now, like because of the dynamic shift in social, get on it. Because what you can do too is you can have these like pre-interviews that you do. One, it'll drive traffic to your social media. But then two, it'll get more people interested in your brand. I say get on.
Okay. Well, you ain't got to tell me twice. And that's probably a good segue. So in what direction do you see public relations industry heading? Tell us what your thoughts on that.
I think it's so funny because someone asked me this maybe like a few interviews ago. I think it's amazing that this whole pandemic happened, right? Because at one point, PR was just solely traditional. But I love that this is now giving a level of eyes are now on these underdogs in public relations, the boutique firms like mine, the boutique firms like a couple of my peers. Like people are now saying, okay, you don't need to be from this big agency in order to work with these Fortune 500 companies. So I see the shift between traditional and new media, but then also traditional PR practices and new PR practices. I had literally, back to Clubhouse again, and that's just because it's such a popular point. I've literally started to see PR agencies have positions for Clubhouse managers. So there's power in that. Like I've seen Foot Action do a conversation on Clubhouse. I've seen, I've seen TD Jakes on Clubhouse. I've seen 21 Savage, Meek Mill. Like, so the way that the world is going, even if Clubhouse isn't the tool to like change it, I think audio will be here to stay, and how we communicate will be here to stay too.
Nice. So if you're watching and listening, once again, this is Living a Rich Life talk show here on Be Exposed Radio. If you have questions, you want to ask a question, the phone lines are opened. Please, by all means, dial in. We are recognizing Reagan Farley, one of the amazing women during Women's Month. And to me, Women's Month is all year round. But if you're going to pick a month, March is a good one because it's a long one. Right.
We love to see it.
So tell us. So I want you to tell us about your most recent project. My team pulled this up, and one of my women teammates, Women Create 2021, a teachable summit. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So tomorrow I am speaking at Teachable's Women Who Create Summit. So Teachable is very similar to Kajabi, like think e-learning, right? So like you can go on here. If you are a host, if you are expert, you can have a series of courses. So to actually, when did it start? Tuesday was their kickoff day for their summit. You have women from everywhere, probably about 30 experts. The conference is free. I'm speaking tomorrow as it relates to the perfect pitch. So crafting your brand message, utilizing tactics as to why that's interesting and helping you find your why. Excellent.
I will be sure to put that on my calendar if my folks haven't done so already.
Yes, check us out.
Absolutely. Keeping with the theme of amazing women on the show here today, you being one of them. So there's a quote that you have. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately.
Yeah.
When you say this, what do you mean?
Come on, Rich, with the research. Rich and team with the research. I believe that we are all destined to do great things, right? But my hustle shouldn't stop Rich's hustle. Rich's hustle shouldn't stop my hustle, so on and so forth. And I think that level of separation and knowing that we don't have to compete to eat is why, for me, that the dream is free, but the hustle sold separately. Like, even when I shout out my peers, I have so many amazing peers in the public relations space, like so many women who are doing great things. I can name Candace Nicole from the PR Alliance, who's based in North Carolina. I can name Keisha Brewer, who's based in DC Candace Nicole from Candace Nicole Public Relations, who's based in North Carolina. Keisha Brewer, who's based in DC from the PR Alliance. Nyaja Simon, who's NSA and Associates. Ariana Drummond, who's Creative Approach PR, right? And although we do the same thing, we hustle differently. Their lanes are their lanes. And because they are women in PR, that doesn't bother me. Like, so sending things such as a contact over, or, sending a referral, sending a media contact over, none of that hurts me because we all hustle different.
I love that response. I love that energy. It's a win-win, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a win-win. We can all win. Sometimes there's that stigmatism of how we move, but actually, end of the day, that's a win-win, and I think that's one of the reasons that you are such an amazing person. And I felt that energy, hence that's why we wanted to have you on here. And you're in the best place to be Exposed Radio.
I love it. And see, what's funny, when you were like, I want to interview you, I'm like, oh, I want you to interview one of my clients, because I'm not like, not that I'm not in the forefront, but me being a publicist, I'm just like, okay, like, I'm cool.
Yeah, we've had some amazing guests here. So again, if you have a story, which I believe everyone has a story, and it's a positive in terms of, at the end of the day, the growth, the change, because we are, we're believers in change here, living a rich life. Well, we're going to get you on Be Exposed Radio and make sure, again, the name speaks for itself.
I love it. And thank you for that, because I did not think to even interview. I'm so used to getting other people's interviews. So thank you for telling stories.
Absolutely. So let's tell folks that are watching it and listening now live, and even when they check out the recording later, what services does your PR agency provide?
Right. So there's something called Done For You services. So meaning you're hiring my team to do the work for you. So to help you, to pitch you, to talk to media from start to finish, to help you with the public relations strategy. So that's our Done For You service. But then we also have what we call the luxury of PR, where you're saying, I'm not necessarily ready to hire a publicist. If you guys can help me get the tools, help me get the information, and I take it from there, I'm fine with that. And those are the two services that we offer. And of course, they vary, but that's kind of like the base level as to what we provide.
Is there a lot of reading when it comes to PR work?
I think I always need to know what's going on. Like, my ear should be to the ground. Like, if anything happens, and not that I do a lot in the music space anymore, but like, if anything happens in certain spaces, I need to know what's going on for sure.
Yeah, that's understandable. So what are you reading now these days?
What am I reading? There's a book by Seth Godin called The Purple Cow. And it's just about marketing strategies and different things of that nature. So I'm reading that right now.
Are you normally an avid reader outside of? Okay. Yeah, you seem something about someone in glasses. They seem like a reader.
I know, we smart, right? You got your glasses on too, so I know you smart too.
Oh, well, that's because I can't see. that's all that is. So I can understand that, being a publicist can be trying, stressful,
It's ghetto. Just say it. It's ghetto.
No, never say that. But how do you unwind when you're not working?
I like to travel. I love to travel. As a matter of fact, as soon as March is over, I'm planning a trip with my friends. So traveling is the traveling for me. I like to shop. I probably should not do that as much as I do, but I do that a lot. Those are like two ways that I do that.
Oh, it's traveling, which I understand. That's always a thing.
And we can't do that now, but I'm gonna get back to it soon.
Yeah, it's not the same how they got us out here. I'm reading and seeing a lot of things on the news. Too many restrictions they're trying to put in place now. So it's a little it's going to be interesting to see how things move forward. I can tell you that. I can definitely tell you that. But let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. So one of the other things, again, as we continue, I had the pleasure of interviewing a phenomenal guest some time ago. And let's see if this information sounds familiar to you. So how do you feel to be recognized as an honoree by Black Girls Vote, Ladies in Politics Celebrating Women's History Month?
It was so awesome. So shout out to Nikitra and Shanae and Anaya from Black Girls Vote. But it was definitely an honor because sometimes we just do the work and we keep our heads down, right? So which is why when you say, oh, I want to interview you, I'm like, huh, me? Why? Like, and it was just that same level of that. Like, it was like, me? Why? Politics? Like, and although our team is doing the work, you just never really think that you're going to get recognized for those sorts of things, because to me, it's so many other people who are doing way more phenomenal work than I am in those spaces.
That's why we have you here.
Yeah,
folks in the background. You know, I'm a background person too, for the most part. You know, I won't say I got pushed or thrown into creating this show and stuff, but they said I'm good at it, and if I can provide a platform for those to tell their story, then that's what I'm doing. That's kind of my way of kind of giving back. Plus, I have fun with it.
And we appreciate that, because I'm like, listen, interview me, Black Girls Vote me, but okay, we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Let's talk about pitching a client, right? Describe how you might put together a pitch for one of your clients. What does that look like?
Yeah, it depends. So like, if it's a journalist that I know, depending on who it is, like I'm texting, hey, I have this amazing story. I thought that you'd be interested. Here's some information on the client. But then it could also be something that's a bit more crafted. Working with Baltimore business owners, Baltimore Hair Salon drops a bomb on Baltimore. Like, you know, you just want to play around. You want to get catchy titles. You want to make sure that you aren't reaching out to people at an awkward time, but you really want to sell that story and definitely craft that narrative. You want to also make sure that you're not pitching something that a person doesn't cover. So if there's a finance journalist, I'm not pitching that person a beauty story. I want to be intentional of their time. And people do that though.
Right. Yeah, facts. That is definitely facts.
Yeah.
You know, again, one of the things I wanted to make sure I point out, this is Women's Month. And you were named number 28 of the Propel 100. The most influential PR agency professionals in the world 2021. What do you think attributed to this recognition?
Rich, I have no idea. Listen, same thing. Like, I have no idea where that came. God, I won't even get all spiritual, but I think that came from that came from a good friend of mine. So I'm gonna shout her out again, Candace Nicole, who probably needs to also be on the show. But Okay. Yeah, it came from her. I feel like when I saw it and then I saw her name in the article, I said, I know who did this. And it was Candace. But to see that, like to see my name juxtaposed with like so many different agency professionals, like top tier companies, it blew my mind in the world, like not in Baltimore, but like in the world. Now I think I really had to digest that. Like at 30, just figuring out the different strides that I'm making, it blows my mind every day.
And I think you do it so freely and carelessly, you know, just like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and don't really look for those recognitions. I think, again, when you just do it because you love it, everything else falls into place. That's just my theory and belief on things. Now, you know, there comes those times where things are not always peaches and herbs and
all the time. Yeah.
Right. So first question is, how do you handle a difficult client if they don't agree with your strategy or approach?
Because you see, I answered that real quick. I don't like headaches.
Okay.
I'm joking.
No.
Joking, but not really.
Joking. Right.
But not.
Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. Thanks for that laugh. Thanks for that laugh.
That is hilarious. No, but I think that there's a come to Jesus moment that we would have to have with clients. Because I think people hire experts for a reason. Like, you gotta let experts be experts, right? Like I said earlier, I tweeted this, I let creators create. So when you're hiring my firm and, my team to help you execute a public relations strategy, we don't know it all for sure. However, if you are talking public relations, I know it like the back of my hand. There's something I can always learn for sure, but you gotta listen. PR is partnership. So we can only work if you work too. So yeah, you gotta listen or get fired.
or get fired. Those are your two options. Right? Oh, that's funny.
I'm joking, y'all. I swear I'm joking.
No. Again, sometimes you got to readjust your contract, your agreements, your arrangements, whatever it looks like. I'm no stranger to that. There's no love lost. I think if you stay professional, it just wasn't a fit at that time, or it could be forever.
That part, it just wasn't a fit. Just as well as you got to see if I'm a good fit for you, we got to see the same. So yeah.
Exactly. So let's continue to go down that path. So when responding to the media and public inquiries, what questions do you find most difficult to answer?
So people will sometimes hire PR professionals and they don't know what we do. So not that that's a difficult question, right? But if you are spending a certain amount of money, and I am going to say over $1,000, if you are spending that, you want to know what you're paying for. Like, I can tell you what we do, but you want to know why you need me. And I think so many people will reach out and they aren't prepared for, those services. I think a difficult question to answer is, will public relations drive sales to my business? Can you get me, what can you guarantee? Because remember, I told you the news cycle changes, so I can't really guarantee you anything. And anyone who's telling you that, anyone who tells you that they can guarantee you something in PR is a lie. Like, I'm calling it out right now.
Right.
So that is a difficult question to answer, because luckily we don't have 45 in the White House again. But if we did, and you're trying to get on CNN, we can't help you, because what's going to take precedence? Crazy 45. So yeah, I think those are some interesting questions. You're laughing at me. I'm sorry. I just got to be blunt.
Right. No, we're very candid here. It's not called Be Exposed Radio for nothing. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We will expose the truth one way or the other.
Listen, that's what it is. And I am trying to tell you and your listeners the truth.
Oh, goodness. And I love it. Now, when I think of PR, there's a few things that I think of. So, I think of advocacy and objectivity, right? How would you balance those two, advocacy and objectivity in PR?
Okay, so objective pieces, I hate to use this as an example. Let's say you are representing, I won't use that as an example, but let's say you are representing someone who you don't necessarily agree with. Now, granted, morals and values come into place. However, I think sometimes you do have those folks that slip under the radar. So just because I don't necessarily agree with what you have going on, that's not my job to more so say I agree or disagree. It's just my job to get your story told. So I think that there's a level where you have to be a little bit objective there, and a little bit impartial. But then what was the other piece? I'm sorry.
The other piece, advocacy.
Advocacy. I love advocating for people who don't necessarily know how to tell their story, who don't know their why. So I think there's a level of being impartial, but then also creating a voice for people who aren't sure of their voice, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Quite cool.
Absolutely. There's always two questions I like to ask my guests. One is, what is your superpower and how do you use it? Because I believe everyone has a superpower.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, I feel like I can do anything. And when I'm talking to my business partner or we're talking to our team, I think as Black women, sometimes folks silence our voices. But then being younger too, because my business partner is 30 as well. I think sometimes folks look at us as, you guys don't have enough experience, but I think experience is subjective if we know how to do the work. So that's one thing. And then also I feel as though if I can represent your local rapper to your large corporation, and I feel like I can do that, like no holds barred. So I think the sky is the limit, and that's how I always feel. And that's what I wake up every day feeling like.
Okay. And then my last and final question is, what does living a rich life mean to Ray the Publicist?
Oh man, living a rich life. Let me tell you what that feels like to me. That feels like living your life without limits. That doesn't necessarily mean monetarily. That can mean rich in spirit. That can mean inspiring your group, your friends, your network to think better, to be better, and to strive for more.
Well said. Well said. I want to thank you, Reagan, for joining. I have my next guest coming up, but I want to thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing your story. It was definitely fun. There's never enough time, as I like to say. But we're going to fix that. I definitely know we will be doing some work together in the future, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Talk to you again soon. All right, folks, we're going to keep living a rich life going. About to bring in two amazing women. They have a podcast that's it's pretty hot right now. It's pretty hot right now. Our second guest, they launched their blog and podcast in August 2016. Their blog and podcast is about love and life for any 20-something, sharing their thoughts and feelings about fun, controversial, and thought-provoking topics. Please welcome Good Girls Behaving Badly, Shanae and Sydney. All righty, let's see here. Having a quick little technical issues, but we'll get them on shortly. I believe they should be joining. Sydney, I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So did you hear my introduction?
No, we did not.
Oh, well, let's do it again. Let's do it again. And for the record, this is Women's Month, as you know. So I want to thank you for joining. Two amazing women that have just joined. So we're going to give an introduction again. So today's second guest is, they launched their blog and podcast in August 2016. Their blog and podcast is about love and life for any 20-something, sharing their thoughts, feelings about fun, controversial, and thought-provoking topics. Please welcome Good Girls Behaving Badly, Shanae and Sydney. Now, did I pronounce Shanae? Because I'm known for tearing up some names.
You pronounced it correctly, so I appreciate that.
Oh, good deal, good deal. So, ladies, how are you doing today?
We're good. How are you? Doing well.
I am doing amazing. I'm doing better than amazing. So first and foremost, I want you to tell us something about yourselves, something interesting that most people don't know. And I'll tell you why I asked that question.
I feel like we're pretty transparent about.
Yeah, I feel like that question is always hard for us to answer because we have had our podcast for almost 5 years. We are very, very transparent. So like all of the interesting facts, we done probably let slip out the bag already.
Right.
But if you've never listened to our podcast, the first thing that unfortunately always comes to mind for me is I only have one kidney. It's like an easy, fun fact that I can think of. Yeah, that's all I have at the moment.
I have two. So
you have two fun facts or two kidneys?
No, two kidneys. I think that's gonna be my fun fact. I have two and she has one.
Oh goodness, I love it. I love it. So let's talk about this name, Good Girls Behaving Badly.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with the name?
Sydney.
So I'm kind of good at I like alliteration. I like putting things together. I'm good at naming things. So I came up with it because I was trying to think of a, fun, provocative topic that I feels like describes us. And we're mostly good, to be honest. Like we don't have all of the crazy stories and stuff like that most of the time. But do we have them every now and again? Do we act up every now and again? Of course. Are we, the traditional women? No. So I felt like it was a perfect combination of how we bring ourselves and how we present ourselves to the world.
Okay. Do you want to add something to that, Shanae? I like that response.
I mean, it's perfect because like she named it without my help. Like she literally had a notepad and it's like I'm fooling with these words. It was like good girl. So she was just kind of milling through, and then she was like, "What about Good Girls Baby Valley?" And I was like, "Perfect." So I can't even take the credit. She did it all by herself, and I just loved it.
Nice. So for those that's just tuning in and watching and listening, we are live with Shanae and Sydney, Good Girls Behaving Badly. I have to say, your topics, your thought-provoking topics, let me put it that way, are very interesting. Now, I've always supported since when we was at Montego and had that open forum. But I have to say, my team, we've listened to quite a few podcasts, some that I missed, and your topics run from, because that's my best friend, IDFWU.
With you.
Get some help, and I can go on and on and on. How do you come up with your episode topics?
I mean, when we first started, it was kind of like what was ever on our mind at the time. As we kept going, because we're in year 5, obviously you start to not have as much on your mind. So then we kind of just started having a rolling list of different topics or interesting articles that we felt would be great to talk about. And that kind of is like the foundation, and then we'll mix in things as they come. So we just kind of have a running list that we constantly add to so we don't run out. We never want to have like a dead show where we're like struggling to find something to talk about. So we just try to always think about that and keep the research going so we always have options no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's well said, because there's a saying on your website that says, bringing you the good and bad every week. So what does that entail? Tell us what's some of the good and some of the bad that might entail within that week.
So one, that's also playing into our name, but 2, because everything we talk about isn't always good. We cover some current events, so like politics, not always good. Life is not always good. Like that's just not realistic. So we want to make sure that we're bringing all of ourselves to our audience. Because a lot of our followers and our audience say that they feel like they're one of our friends, and that's how we want them to feel. And you're not always just good. You're not always in a happy mood. So we want to make sure we're bringing both to the table when we are speaking with our audience.
Are you 2 best friends?
Of course.
I hate her. I hate her. I loathe her.
There you go. We all know that ain't true. Yeah. What keeps you ladies up at night? That's what I want to know.
White supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy.
Shanae, I've seen Sydney a little more, but I think I need to see you a little more too now. Oh goodness, that is too funny. That is too funny. What's the number one takeaway you try and leave your audience during a podcast episode?
I think part of it is like to be vulnerable. We do cover a number of different topics, and sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree, but like be your true self, be honest with yourself and with others, and always have clear communication. And so that's why we choose some of the topics, because we do choose topics that sometimes people don't think about, or we bring perspectives that people don't think about. So we want to always just be thought-provoking and encouraging people to then have those conversations with those around them.
Nice. The one thing that I've learned, and hats off again to my team, they compared your podcast, you 2 ladies, to Bourbon and Boy Shorts podcast. They say, you are the female, and again, this is Women's Month, and we're celebrating and recognizing amazing women like yourselves. But they compared, they was like, yo, don't you know those two guys, from Bourbon and I said, yes, I know them very well. I said, Shanae and Sydney, I think they're like the female version. I said, well, how can they just be the females that's doing something similar? But that's a whole nother conversation. But the message, the topics that you bring, they are definitely fun. They, some of them are controversial, but they are thought-provoking. And I think that's the key when it comes to, delivering a podcast to your audience, making sure they're taking stuff in. My question is, can you describe your process when preparing for a guest to appear on your show, as well as that process looks like when you're talking about different topics?
So when we're preparing for a guest, we of course research them, come up with questions, communicate that with them, ensure that there's nothing that they don't want to talk about, just to make sure that they're comfortable. That's kind of the process for that. But just piggybacking on what Shanae said earlier, when we were going to our topics, sometimes it's like we're talking about something naturally and we're like, oh, this topic can be a podcast. But other times we refer back to our running list of topics or articles that we found that support those list of topics, so that we can ensure that we're having conversation, but it's also supported by research or facts or anything else. So that's kind of our process for the two different kind of podcasts.
Okay. So the one thing that also jumps out at me, the 20-something audience, right? Because I think your topics handle just the 20-somethings. Besides, we're not going to all be 20-something forever, right? So do you just focus on the 20-something audience considering your topics that they affect all ages? Tell me how does that happen?
Well, I mean, we said 20-something because we're 20-something. So our perspective comes from where we are in our lives. Now, look, we're both knocking on 30's door.
Yeah.
So yeah, the bio probably will be updated to maybe millennial, but I mean, that's originally where it came from. Can our topics reach an audience that may be younger than the millennial or older? Yep, we do have listeners who are in other generations, whether it be like Gen X or Gen Z, and we welcome that. But I think ultimately our perspective goes into the 20-something, the millennial, because that's where we are.
Right.
And that's where it comes from. I think some of the topics certainly can touch on a teenager, a 30, 40, 50-year-old. Like some of the things we talk about are life things that impact everybody at one point in time. But I think the whole 20-something came down to the fact that we were 20-something.
Right. And we're like in our bio as well, we talk about us being single. First of all, we haven't been single the entirety of our podcast, but hopefully we ain't gonna be single forever. Like, so eventually we'll have more stories about, different kinds of relationships, motherhood, all those things will come. But at this point in time, we can only talk about our experience. And so we would never want to put ourselves out there as like gurus of something that we've never been through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you share an experience or a situation where things didn't go as planned during your podcast? Because these things happen, that I know. So what did you do in terms of, what was the worst moment? What was the worst moment that something just went wrong during the podcast?
So I can't say it went wrong, but every time someone asks us about like the worst moment, I think about the worst episode where we had a guest that was just provocative in the wrong way.
You don't opened up the can of worms. What was that like?
It was crazy because also we were trying to manage our own reactions to what they were saying and continue to podcast when in reality we both just wanted to flip the table. And our listeners wanted to flip the table. Like after they heard the episode, they were like, why didn't y'all go harder? And it's not always on us to go hard on people. Sometimes we can check them. And of course we can always do that in the future. But in the moment, sometimes that's just not the energy that you have. And it was just a learning experience, honestly, to, dealing with people like that.
Absolutely. So, my next question, what episode was that?
Oh, I gotta pull up the episode number.
I don't know.
Long ago.
It was a couple of years ago, but I would think probably that. I mean, sometimes, you can discuss things with your guests and you prep them, but you're not gonna know what's gonna come out of their mouth. And that's just essentially what that episode was.
Right.
He said a lot of things that we didn't agree with, and
yeah, I'm trying to find that.
it was, it was an interesting conversation. It was a way to hear another perspective. But it definitely was challenging for us, like she said, on a personal end, because like personally, we were done with it. Like we were like,
okay,
the interview about to be done. You doing too much. But as you know, when you're interviewing others and you're having them come on your show, that's you're not going to stop it. You're gonna let them go. You're gonna try to keep control of the conversation, and you get to your questions and you move forward from that. But I think people enjoyed the episode, even though they didn't like what he said. So, like, ultimately,
it's still our top played episode.
It was a good episode, and there you go. People like the provocative stuff, the controversy. So, I think anything like that, or maybe there's an episode where we didn't like the sound, but when you keep moving, you learn from it, you enhance, and you try to get better. I feel like our production level now is the best it's been. If I listen to old episodes, I'm like, oh, we sound muffled, or we weren't as prepared. But that's, I think, some of the learning, growing pains when you're kind of committed to your podcast.
Absolutely. Your website looks phenomenal. Let me say that.
Thank you. Shout out to Sydney. I ain't gonna hold y'all. I ain't had nothing to do with that website.
Website looks phenomenal.
You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Definitely. I think, again, just looking at it, I'm not big on recreating the wheel, so I definitely will be talking to you, Sydney, because again, I love the format. It just looks easy. It looks nice and clean. Plus, folks are always trying to tell me, hey, how do I find your episodes and your shows? Yeah. I think it's a little different because I do have, the video and the audio piece, but just the same, they always complain about that. So I'll leave it at that. So tell us, let's make sure folks know how to get in contact with you. Please share your social media, Twitter, and Black Magic, Black Planet, all that good stuff.
Black Planet. Oh Lord, you took it back.
First thing first. Make sure you subscribe to us, Good Girls Behaving Badly. You can find us on any platform you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all of that. We're there. You can also follow us on Instagram, Good Girls Behaving Badly. On Twitter, it's GGBB Podcast. And then on Facebook, it's Good Girls Behaving Badly.
Yep.
Excellent. So tell us, what's next for Good Girls Behaving Badly? I just like saying that because you look like good girls, but I know y'all behave. I believe it. But you also behave badly. So let's keep it. We Be Exposed Radio. We put it out there. All right. So tell us, what's next? All jokes aside, what's next for Good Girls Behaving Badly?
I think we want to continue the podcast, but for everyone who may be new to us, if you follow us on social media, you'll get other content from us. So we do some video content. We do have just this year we did the end of last year, we did our YouTube page. So we're wanting to expand and how we bring people content. We certainly want to continue brand partnerships that we've had. So we just want to keep expanding and see where it goes. I think we both enjoy it. We've been doing it for 5 years, but even prior to the podcasting, we had a radio show in college. So we've just been doing this for a very long time and we really enjoy it. So, we open the opportunity and we'll see.
Yeah.
Nice. Well said, Shanae. Well said. There's two questions I always like to ask all my guests, because I believe, one, that everyone has a superpower. Tell me, what's your superpower, Shanae? And how do you use it?
I don't know. Maybe
Can we make it fun and pick a superpower for each other?
Absolutely. Okay. I like that. All right, so Shanae, now you tell me what Sydney's superpower is, and Sydney.
My superpower, not her.
Okay, so Sydney, you go first. Then. Y'all work it out.
Okay. turn. You want to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I'm still. Let me think.
I think Shanae's superpower is always being genuine and honest and giving you the facts regardless. I think she's always been able to do that, and it has changed in how she does it throughout her life. But
I have a better approach to this.
I always think that that's what she's been able to do. And like that's why I call her a bumblebee, because you know the queen bee, people get scared because it's really it's intimidating, but they can't even sting you. They're the prized possession, and so that's what I would compare to Shanae to that.
Superpower. Okay.
That's her superpower. Let me tell you something. I promise you, Sydney is just like she's just Sydney. Like, what is that? How do you compare to that? How do you compare to that? I'm surprised. That's like so beautiful, girl. Like, what do I do with that? What type of answer can I give?
I don't know, but you got to give one.
I know. Okay, sorry. Her superpower. Maybe her. You know what? Her like her understanding and her desire to understand. Mm-hmm. Sydney is the type of person where she wants to get people's point of view. I think sometimes I can be very closed off. I can be very, kind of black and white. Mm-hmm. And Sydney is this perfect balance, kind of like the gray that you need. She wants to understand people's perspective. She wants to understand why things work. So on some hand, she could be very like analytical and logical, like wanting to understand how that works. But then when you apply that to people, it shows up in like with her just having a huge heart with the way that she handles people and the way that she provides support and nurturing. So I feel like her level of understanding and the desire to understand, whether it's like a math problem or a person, there's a consistent level of really wanting to understand something or someone for who they are and doing that without judgment. And I think that is a talent because, I mean, it's easy for everyone to judge. And I think she's like the last person in the world to do that. Plus, she just, look at she is with words. I'm still like, oh my gosh.
I love it. I love it. I love the dynamics that you two have. I can hear it in the show. I appreciate you both. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. Now, the last question that I asked my guests, and Sydney, you go first.
Okay.
What does living a rich life mean to you?
So I'll give two answers. One, I don't know because I'm broke.
No.
But two.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Oh, shit. Okay.
If I had a rich one. But two, I guess oftentimes people define rich as just feeling full. And so I think that's how I would define living a rich life, is just being full of energy, being full of love. It's not necessarily about the physical things like my first answer was.
It would be nice though.
But in fact, it would be nice. But I think that's probably what living a rich life should mean, is that you're just full and you're happy because of it.
Okay. Shanae.
I feel like I would say all that, and I'm gonna add on to it like balance. When I think of a rich life, I think of having an element of like peace and balance with what brings joy to you. We're all different, but so I feel like for me, is my life, a rich life is having peace and balance and feeling good about every aspect of my life. So it's my family, my friends, my job, my health, my wealth, just that sort of balanced ratio that I feel like we all are looking for in life.
Nice. Thank you. Now, there's never enough time in the show. I do want you ladies to stick around for Living a Rich Life closing remarks. And again, I want to say thank you for joining. This is Women's Month, and I wanted to make sure that on the show all month, we are focusing on amazing, talented, beautiful women. And again, in that order, sometimes folks get messed up when you put the beauty first, but all those things, it's a combination. So at this time, I'm going to give Living a Rich Life closing remarks. And with that being said, for those that don't know, one of Living a Rich Life principles is philanthropy. That is philanthropy, number 6. And a philanthropist is a person who donates time, money, experience, skills, or talent to create a better world. Anyone can be a philanthropist, regardless of your status or net worth. How are you helping to make your community and or the world better? Being able to serve others is the greatest gift bestowed on us as individuals. Once again, thank you, Reagan Farley, Ray the Publicist. Thank you, Good Girls, Behaving Badly. I swear I love that. Shanae and Sydney for sharing your stories and inspiration today. I know we've inspired others, other women, other men, boys, girls. I feel that, and that's why we have you here on BeExposedRadio.com. So until next week, stay focused and continue to be inspired to live a rich life. Once again, I am your host, Rich James, saying good night. Thank you for tuning in to BeExposedRadio.com, where we let you know what you know. Until then, have a good night. Thank you, ladies. This was fun.
Yeah.
Shanae, we're going to have to talk more.
I just be talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just be talking. Yeah, I say I love it. Lovely smiles. Thank you, ladies, for joining. I do apologize for the delay. We was having some technical issues, but we got it done. You know how that is. You know how that is.
All righty.
All righty. Normally I take my guests out, but we're not in the studio. Feel free to come out tonight. You know where.
Okay.
I better see you, Shanae. I'm watching you.
You won't, brother.
I know that's right.
We're still in a panini, so I like to keep it cute and inside.
Oh, well, you better than the rest of us, because I'm inside. I'll be looking rough. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. They going.